Plugin of the week is the McDSP 6050 Ultimate Channel Strip. The 6050 plugin is a mix rack of plugins that include all of the EQs from the 6020, all of the compressors from the 6030, if you're familiar with the McDSP components, and 8 new modules that are added in. Now, what this plugin format does is it gives you sort of a 500 series style rack where you can place those different components in. You have 3 slots, you have an input stage and an output stage, and then you have an ability here to toggle through all of the individual plugins. So if we start from the top, let's go through some of the basics of it, and then we'll get into some of the modules and make a little noise with it. So we have, the first thing is our target. So we can target 1, 2, or 3, so that's slot 1, 2, or 3. Within that, we can select either EQ, compressor, or what he calls more category, which includes a couple of expanders and some distortion units and a gate. So you can set things up from there. So if we wanted to kind of work here with this, we can actually go and select through the different units. There's something that you may notice in addition here, which is an output gain control. Which didn't exist on some of the prior revisions of these modules. So as you go through them, what you have is a series of modules that are reconstructs of some vintage gear and also some new things that have been created by McDSP. So they're mostly modifications on the existing thing. Some of them are fairly obvious when you kind of open them up, what they are connected to or what units they're originally from. You know, like for example here, like the Opto C is like the compressor setting on an LA2, and the L2 is the limiter setting on the same. Over Easy looks like that's probably the DBX 165 or some emulation. They had the Over Easy, etc., etc. So you go there. The MU or the MT2 is a Varimu compressor. And you could kind of go through. So some of them are obvious, some of them I'm not so sure, and you just kind of figure it out as you kind of go along. So you have all of that, and there are also, you can also take any slot and set it up as no module, so you can clear any slot that you want. If you have slots, you can also move them around, so you can kind of coordinate them and organize them in whatever way that you like. There is also another way to get to it. So if you're actually working on an individual unit and you click hold on the name up at the top right, you can also select the different modules from here, and that gives you the full list. So what you can see here, these are all the EQs, 2 filter modules, which are new. One of them is new that's added in. And you can see the one with the X is the MT2 that we already have, and then you could select and toggle through the compressors. I got expander gates down here and 3 saturation modules that you can throw in there as well. So this gives you a lot of control and a lot to work with. Now, you can also set up a key input. So whatever you assign as the key input through your host application, you can assign that key input to either the first slot, second slot, or third slot, or all 3. And then you can also listen to that keyed input source. So that gives you the ability to work with external keys on any of the individual slots. You also have an input gain control. So if your input gain is kind of high, you have the ability to back that off or add gain if necessary. So you've got good gain staging going through. And on the back end, if you do a lot of boosting and whatever on the EQ and all of that sort of stuff, then you can make up for that on the output stage. Or if you're doing some pretty heavy compression, then you can also make up for the total effect of that or gain of that on the output. So when you bypass it, you're getting more or less the same level, but with the new sound kind of coordinated in. Also on the output, you have input meters and you have output meters, and then you also have phase inversion at the output for left or right. So that gives you some phase reverse capabilities on top of that. So this is the basic way that it is set up, and it's very smart the way that it's laid out. So for example here, I'm going to bypass this. So there's also a bypass for individual modules as well as what you get through the host for a total bypass. But what I'm going to start here is with some drums. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a basic, the C671. I can assign makeup gain here, set my time constant for release. So this seems like a Fairchild emulation. And the body of that would kind of seem to verify that fact. So we got slower release times here on the time constant, or faster release times down here. Also, there are some other shortcuts that you may not be aware of. If you double-click on any knob, it'll reset it to its default setting. Also, if you use the Command key, you'll get a fine resolution as you move up. So if you're trying to, if your mouse speed is set too quickly, just by holding the Command key, or if you're on a Windows system, I believe that would be the Windows key that you use. That's usually the coordination. And if you Option or Alt-click on any of the settings, that would also do it. So unless your host kind of overtakes that, those are the basic settings and the way that it works. Now, the cool part about this, and what I think makes this channel strip setup really cool, is the fact that as you toggle through, and you will be, if you're familiar with the 60/20 or 60/30, you're familiar with this, that as I run through this setup, I have basically the closest compression settings that are available given each unit as I toggle through them. Sometimes now the gain reduction will vary, so I may find that I need to lower my threshold. But my output gain, which has been added in on all these modules, remains the same. And while it never ends up being perfect, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're going to have different attack times, different knee characteristics on each one, so the gain reduction is going to always be difficult to kind of make perfect matches on. But the cool part about that is that you can kind of go through a series of different compressors in this example and find the vibe or the tone or the character that you're looking for by quick toggling through what those settings are. Where setting that up on individual plugins would be difficult. So that's maybe a little bit aggressive for this. So I'll go with this because I think it actually gives me a little bit more just gives a little body and warmth, which I kind of like for the drums and the bass. Now, if I wanted to work with an EQ, then I can switch over to the second module section and kind of do a similar type of thing. So in other words, if I do maybe I want to do like a little bit of a top end boost and maybe a low end boost. So maybe I'll do something there to kind of fatten it up overall. I like doing that coordinated top end, low end, because they kind of play off of each other. So if you get that very top end boost and you get that low end boost, they help to balance each other off, so one doesn't become muddy and the other one doesn't become too airy. And now I can toggle through some different EQs. Moo EQ, maybe that's like a massive passive kind of thing. This doesn't actually coordinate to either of those. And this is actually kind of this is a throwback to the tone module going back to 1999. So I'm going to stick with this because I kind of like this. The one other cool element on here, which we can kind of throw in, and we'll just kind of set this up on the third channel. So if I click on here, it also switches it up on this end. And what I can do here is work a little saturation on this to give it a little bit more character. Just kind of bring a little bit more character out of that snare drum. Somewhere along here, I think I ended up on this EQ. Oh yes, there actually is one thing if you go to some of the newer modules. Some of the EQ settings will change. I think this saturation is kind of affecting, doing damage to the kick drum in an effort to kind of save the snare drum. So I could go back to the original track for that. Okay, let's go to a quick thing on the guitars and kind of do a similar thing. So what I was thinking here, just as a quick start, is maybe going to something a little bit more aggressive. Maybe I'll kind of, just to kind of pull them forward, I'll set a slower attack, maybe up towards 25. Kind of pump them a little bit. And then on the second module section here, this is where I'll go now to that tone module. Just got to give them a little bit more power. And you hear what this sounds like after. Like it better before. So you can hear how, like, quickly you can kind of dial something in on there. The ability to kind of quickly toggle through the different modules to get different sounds. There's actually there's so many cool things to go over with this. The other two new modules that are in here. So if I wanted to put this on here, the Moody, this is kind of the smoother, softer one. This has got a little bit more, or that's actually kind of an edgier one. The Moo one is like a tube distortion. This is like more heavy duty, the D100. So that's been added in here. There are a couple of expander modules, which you can use, gate modules that you can use for getting rid of, with also a separate sidechain EQ and all of that, just to kind of, gate down a snare drum or a noisy guitar, things along those lines. So you got some additional tools that are added in there. Plus, on the other side of it, there are also 2 new EQs, right? So you got the MEF1 here, which gives you a high cut. This can also work quite well for guitars, where you can kind of choke a little bit of the top end for warmth, some of the boominess, and then give it a little bit of mid-range tone. Which gives it kind of a ballsiness. So that's a really, really cool new addition, the MEF1. And then the E404. So again, that's the reissue of the McDSP unit from back in the late 90s. This is a very cool one. I mean, it's a very workable thing in terms of there's a lot to work with in terms of different vintage components. These are emulations of things that go back, for years. They say 4 decades, but I think it's actually longer than that, because the Fairchild emulation would go all the way back to the 1950s. But it's just a simple unit, 3-space, that kind of does most of what you need to do, and the ease with which you can switch between the different components as you're kind of dialing through while preserving the settings is amazing. That really is a huge workflow enhancement, and one of the greatest things about this. But a very cool one. McDSP 6050 Ultimate Channel Strip. That is the plugin of the week. And maybe if I toggle through the right page, it'll be good. There we go. Plugin of the week. McDSP 6050 Ultimate Channel Strip.